I'm going to talk to you basically about how to set up live streaming encoders and kind of compare some of the different options that are on the market now, just depending on kind of what your needs are. So just quickly a little bit about who I am and what I do. I'm Dylan Armajani, live streaming specialist for AOL and Huffington Post now. I do 3+ live events a week. They really range in quality of what they are. I'll play a quick clip for you after this just so you guys can see kind of the wide range of the different events that we do. What my job actually entails is basically choosing the transmission paths. How do we get the content into our studio, or how do we get it, if it's a remote location, do we bring it back to the studio? Do we leave it there? Is it fiber? Is it satellite? Is it IP? I make all the encoding profiles. I manage all of our entry points on our various CDNs, make the player embeds, make sure that our bloggers actually know how to embed the video on the site, which, believe it or not, is one of the harder parts. And then I do all like the post-show DVR clipping and all that. So I'm just going to quickly play a video for you guys just so you can see just briefly kind of the wide variety of live events that we do.
And if I die tonight, well, I guess I die tonight. Let me go on.
Okay, now we are live from Cupertino, California.
Hey y'all, I'm Scotty McCreery, coming to y'all live from AOL Studios in New York City.
Welcome, Marsha.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Mixed Martial Arts Hour is back in your life.
Welcome, everybody, to the Engadget Show. We have a very Halloween-themed episode for you tonight.
If it wasn't for science, right now those people wouldn't be listening to us. We wouldn't have this opportunity.
So that's just kind of a brief recap of just the wide variety of different things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And so just kind of a quick overview. It's obviously different a little bit if it's HLS or if it's HDS. But basically, we end up with a live event. We have to somehow encode it, whether it be hardware encoders or software encoders. We have to push that to some sort of entry point. That then, on the CDN, they distribute it to all their streaming servers, and then at the end, we get end users, on their laptops, on their iPhones, on their iPads, who can actually consume the media. So when we really kind of start deciding how are we going to do an event, we kind of have three main choices, three ways that we can actually do our live encoding. We can do something that's software-based, something that's hardware-based, or what's becoming more and more popular, which is kind of the software, hardware, cloud hybrid all mixed together. So just to kind of go over those three, software-based live encoding, really a specialty software that's installed on non-proprietary hardware, something I could run on this laptop, that's made specially for live encoding. Examples are, Flash Media Live Encoder, Telestream Wirecast, and a whole bunch of others. The pros are that it can run on just about anything. It's pretty cheap to get into the market. If you can spend a couple $100, buy some software, use your laptop that you have, and you can start your streaming. The cons are that you often can't deliver HLS. It's often slightly more crash prone just because you're mixing hardware and software that aren't necessarily optimized for each other. And it's often the user is using a piece of hardware that's probably not ideal for what they're doing. So that being said, I just wanted to kind of show you guys some examples of just kind of how easy it is to get set up with a software encoder. So if you bear with me for 1 second. So kind of the entry-level one that everyone uses, it's free, is Flash Media Live Encoder. So let me just launch that up. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. You can download it for free off the Adobe site. But all right, let us... Awesome. It's like that TED Talks video where thing starts beach balling and then everyone comes out. But if you bear with me for 1 second, sorry about this. I was actually barely going to show you guys this, so I'm just going to show you the layout and then move on to Wirecast, which is what I was actually going to show you. But basically, with Flash Media Live Encoder, you see you don't really have actually that many options. You can only stream a maximum of 3 bit rates out of it. It's obviously all flash, no HLS. You can't really do anything with it except connect something in, an audio device in, a video device in, and stream to your server. And again, you're limited to 3. But where things get a little bit more exciting is, which is what I wanted to show you guys, is basically when you bring in something like Wirecast. So Wirecast is a piece of software that it's pretty cheap. It comes in different versions. And basically, it's Flash Media Encoder with a whole layer on top. So all of a sudden, if you want to, say, bring in titles, lower thirds, you want to bring in a slate, all of a sudden you can do all of this just on your laptop. And you can do this in the field. You can do this, back at your location. So just for an example, I'll show you. This is just some content that I'm streaming from a Key Pro. This was live in the Huffington Post office a few weeks ago. I'm just using an Aja IO-XT. It's like a $2,000 device. You can plug an SDI camera into it. It's Thunderbolt out right into your Mac Pro. And all of a sudden, we have now what is live video in the software. It's super simple. If we go to the broadcast settings, you can see here I've already propagated it, but I can push out really as many different streams as I want to. I mean, I wouldn't go more than like 3. That's a little probably crazy. But it's just super simple. You hit plus, you can go, they have all these wonderful presets made for you, and you just have to, copy and paste your address and your basically stream name, which, has been given to you by your CDN or you've propagated it on your own. And so let's just let's start streaming this. It's all set. So we are now live on the internet. I will go to this page that I've set up, and you can see. Second, I'm streaming to an Akamai, basically one of the Akamai. It's HDNet, and so it does have DVR, so it takes a second. So sorry, you have to bear with me for one moment. So here, that's simple. We're live on the internet.
This was a contributing factor to the Arab Spring, that there was a lot of unrest in the Middle East because prices are high now.
Manipulating this. I can duplicate this shot. I'll mute my output there. I can go into this shot, edit it, and all of a sudden, I can do really whatever I want. I can add a layer. Oops. I can add a layer right here. I can make it a text layer. I can toss this here. They've got all these wonderful, just pre-built lower thirds, different, animations that can come on and off. And then I could say, Huffington Post live. Take that as my shot there. And then, oops. When I go back to here, if I take that shot, now you see that fades in right here. I can go right back to my other shot. And basically, all of a sudden, I can introduce a whole other layer of what we can do with just a piece of software running on a Mac. If you take a Mac Pro, you put in a one of the higher end Kona cards or Blackmagic cards, you can almost eliminate the need for a TriCaster by just running Wirecast. It's not necessarily what the professional might do per se, but it's a really good way to get into the market, get in cheap, and just start playing with it. Again, for us, this isn't the way that we run, an event that has 8 cameras. But if we have something with just 2 cameras, like something just like this in our DC office, we set them up with this, someone that understands just like how the entry points work on a CDN, can put it all in, and then all they have to do is come and hit start and stop, and you are basically live on the internet. It's just a super simple product. And they've got a whole bunch of other options that you can do with this too. You can, if you want to take in an IP-based camera, you can take in an IP-based camera. You can actually, I know they're working on it, so you can take in another RTMP stream. So if you have someone that's somewhere else, they could stream that into your system, and then basically you can just make this little virtual control center right on your laptop. So for us at AOL and Huffington Post, this is basically the way that we do anything that's in the field that isn't necessarily sponsored to the point where we need redundancy, we need to send it back via fiber and satellite, make sure that it's definitely going to get there, need to run 2 or 3 encoders on it. But anything that's just kind of this quick, easy content, this is how we do it. If you go to HuffingtonPost.com and you look in the splash page during like any Super Tuesday, any primary event, this is exactly how live video is being delivered there.
You plug the cameras directly on the computer?
Yeah, so if you have like a Mac Pro and you take like a Kona card or a Blackmagic card, you can just plug your SDI directly in and you're good to go. Otherwise, Aja, this is the IO XT. It's over Thunderbolt, so you can actually take in the full HD feed. These things cost about $2,000, and they can take HDMI in, they can take SDI in. They're fantastic. It's definitely, I think this is the cheapest way just to get into the market and start streaming. And you often hear, there's the AEGs, the iStream Planets, and they're doing these super high-end events where basically, they're running 40 encoders, they're sending it via satellite. The budget on these things is, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not all live content needs to cost that much. There's total value to just, being able to set up your camera and just go. And this is definitely the easiest way, and it's what we do. I think in my clip that I showed even, there was like a live interview with Scotty McCreery, and we do something in his dressing room. We have 5 minutes to get in there. It's so easy, just run in with a laptop, camera already hooked up, and you have your lower thirds ready to go. Plug your Ethernet in, you're good to go. It's a really, really easy way, and it's basically the way that I would recommend that anyone just gets into the market who wants to start playing with it. And they can do all sorts of, with Wirecast, if you really get into it, you can get all sorts of crazy things. There's transitions, so you can decide how things wipe in, wipe out. You can actually take other movie clips that you have on your computer, drag it in, play them back, so it's kind of like an easy way to do a roll-in. You can make, if you're actually like totally crazy, I know they can chroma key even, so you can, basically use like a virtual set. But it's definitely, it's just a good entry-level way into the market. So let me stop this and get back to my presentation. So then there's hardware-based live encoding. And this is basically where you buy a box that has software that is made to run just on that piece of hardware. The Elemental Lives, the Cisco media processors, Haivision has a whole bunch. That's that solution. The problem with those is that they're very expensive. You're looking $20,000 just to get into the market. If you want to have 2 so that you can run a primary and backup, you're looking at $40,000, $50,000, and this is an investment that you can really only use while you're live. If you're going to try something out, maybe you're going to try to do a podcast for the first time, do you really want to invest $50,000 and have it 2 weeks later not work out, and you decide, this isn't working, now you're out all this money. So for people that do a lot, that's kind of the, what often the next step is, but it's definitely not the entry-level point. The advantages, though, when you do go to the hardware encoding is in the actual box themselves, most of them can do HLS, so you can deliver to iPads, to iPhones. You end up with just more control over the encoding parameters. The cons, though, are much more expensive and not so portable. You know, these are things that you have in your racks. They weigh 20 pounds. You're not going to go carry them around. You know, they cost $20,000. You're not going to go toss it in the subway with you while you, travel uptown. You'll easily take a piece of software on your laptop. So just to show you kind of I didn't actually bring one here because it's so big, but I'm going to remote into one that I have back in the office so I can show you guys just the difference in kind of what you can do. So this is a Cisco Media processor, AS8100. Used to be the Inlet Spinnakers. The branding, they're slowly changing over to Cisco. But so if you can see off the bat, you kind of instantly have a lot more options. These things can give you basically 8 different renditions out, so you can choose 8 different bit rates and resolutions, and then you can spit each one of those out into a primary and backup, and also into multiple different formats. So you can spit out RTMP and HLS, primary and backup on both. So in theory, the math on that is, that's 30 plus streams that you can get out of one of these boxes. It's kind of crazy to do that, but for us, it's an easy way for we have things in studio that we can basically just do everything out of one box. If it's a really bigger thing, for example, we do a partnership with Vivo, we have to hit all their specs on their mobile devices. We can just really easily make sure that we hit them all. And so when you look into what you actually see once you start going through here, for each of the 8 different streams that you have, you can choose, first off, do you want to be main, high, or baseline, the actual level. So again, when you're going to mobile devices, you have to worry about that a lot more. Especially when trying to hit older things or dealing with connected TV devices. And things just get to be a pain where, the Roku box wants things one way, Boxy wants things another way, Samsung TVs want things slightly different. You can just really make sure that you can hit just about every spec this way on your own hardware that you have complete control about. You can do all sorts of pre-processing. You can watermark on all the streams. You can do that in Wirecast too, I should say. And then you've got all sorts of things you can choose. Where do you want your B frames? You can choose. They have basically built-in what they call advanced parameter selection. And it says, okay, if this is a 720p stream, well, we've already done all the math for you to guarantee you what's going to be the best encode. And so just select this. It's going to look good. It's going to use a little bit more processing power, but it definitely ends up coming out, I think, a little bit better. And then, when you go to your iPhone outputs, you can do those on the same devices, so on the same stream. So, for example, on this, my stream 1, if I look, this is a 1.5 meg stream with keyframes every 30 seconds. It's 1280 by 720. I can spit this out to both Flash RTMP and also to iPhone. So basically, I'm using one channel of the encoder to do 2 different encodes, and I can spit primary and backup on both. So it's really doing 4 encodes off of one channel. So I'll just kick this off, and then once it actually starts encoding on these boxes, you get a little bit more insight than you do in some of the software, which I'll show you in a moment. So you can actually go, obviously you could get CPU usage on, your computer while you're using Wirecast or something, but there's so many other apps that are running, you don't totally know what's bogging it down. And this is the only thing running on this machine. You can see, we're doing all this. We're at 31%. I could push out a lot more than what I am pushing out, which is actually, 7 different channels of video. So 3 channels of Flash and 7 channels of HLS. And, the machine is barely buzzing along. And you also get the insight on the actual machines to see, basically, if you look at the queue size, you can see it's showing each chunk as it's transferring off the encoder onto the CDN. So often when there's a problem, there's kind of that first thing. Is the problem on the CDN? Is the problem with my bandwidth? Is the problem with my encoder? And so the one thing I like about the hardware encoders is that, I can see, oh, my CPU usage is down, but, my playback is skipping a lot. All my HLS users are having problems. And I can see, oh, there's a whole bunch of pending chunks that aren't making it in time to the CDN. So the problem actually, it's not the CDN's fault, it's my fault. I have to deal with, basically my connection to them. There's something wrong with my bandwidth. And so just so you can see out of one machine that we're doing both is, let me go back to Safari. And so if you see I'm streaming the same thing from there, this is coming off of an encoder that's back at AOL's office. I also put the HLS link right here, so if I actually go into QuickTime, I can show you that basically they're one encoder, we're pushing both HLS streams and we're pushing flash streams. So that's basically the advantage of a hardware encoder. Let me log out of here and get back to this. So the combination that I think is becoming more and more popular, and we're going to see more and more, is kind of the software and hardware and cloud kind of hybrid solution, which is basically taking software or hardware, pushing basically just a single high bit rate stream to the cloud or to the CDN, and basically have them do basically making all the encoding flavors that you need. Hyperstream does this, Wowza does it. All the CDNs are getting into the business of it. I know Akamai is starting to do it. Level 3 is starting to do it. And the advantage is you don't need much bandwidth at your location to actually push something out. If you can push a 5 meg stream out, they can basically take that and make all your, they could give you, it's unlimited, They'll give you Silverlight streams. They'll give you RTMP, 5 different RTMP renditions. They'll give you all your HLS. They'll give you, HDS. Basically, whatever your devices need, they can do. And basically, they have to deal with all that processing power. They're spinning up more and more machines. You're not having to buy more machines. And so you're really only paying for the time that you're using, as opposed to having to bring in all this new hardware. So I know, especially with basically like the connected TV devices becoming so popular, I think this is really the way we're going to see things going, because when you need a million different flavors of things, let someone else kind of handle it who can spin the hardware up, spin it down when it's not being used, reuse it for other clients, and you really only have to pay for it when you're using it. So, yeah, again, just some pros are that you can encode out of, locations with a lot less bandwidth. You can generate HLS streams from something like Wowza, Wirecast, which is great, or even Flash Media Encoder. The only con I see is that there's, a few more fault points. You're bringing one more person into the mix, and so it's just one more place you have to look that, something might have gone wrong. So just to show you, I have a Wowza instance that's running on Amazon that I'm just going to take Wirecast and So again, this is the same thing. I'm just pushing out I think it's just a single bitrate stream at 2 megs. I'm pushing it to a Wirecast instance that's literally just living on, It's on Amazon storage. So the moment that it's done, spin it down. Don't pay for it. Only paying for it right now. And then if we go back to, actually, here's the. So this, for example, is, here's HLS streams that are coming out of it. I'm streaming this from a piece of software on my computer. Wowza is basically taking it and transcoding it so I can have my HLS delivery. I also can go back to here, and they're also taking this and they're spitting out, I believe, 3 different bit rates of the same thing. So that, now all of a sudden, if I have somebody with a 2 meg connection, they're getting the pass-through. If I have, actually you can see right now my connection's kind of crappy because there's a lot of people on here, and I'm taking it down on QuickTime too. So I'm getting something right here that's probably like 800K. So that's just one really big advantage of something like using Wowza, is that you can take this software and you can basically get all the professional deliverables that you need by just running something in the cloud. And I think for the CDNs too, they're going to start to encourage people to do this because, if I'm doing an event and I'm pushing primary backup, 8 different streams to them, in 2 different flavors, that's like, 30-something different streams. That's a lot of incoming traffic that they have to handle. And it's much easier if I send them a single stream and then internally on their own bandwidth, they kind of just transfer it around, do all the encoding, and then spit it out. I'm taxing their entry point a lot less, and I'm actually bringing down their bandwidth cost as well as my own, as far as my usage. So those are really what I would say kind of the 3, the 3 big methods, and really the only 3 methods that you have when you're trying to get into live video. You kind of have to pick one of those 3 transmission methods or encoding methods, and to get your best results. And then just some kind of tips and tricks is that basically no matter what you are doing, you should really always keep your audio bit rates the same across all the renditions. You see people do this all the time where they just take the generic preset and one's at 128K, one's at 96, one's at 44, one's at 48, and that's when you start switching bit rates, you kind of notice there's like this kind of pop, and the volume kind of gets either a lot louder or a lot quieter. So that's one thing you really have to look into. Another thing is just to try to reuse certain renditions across platforms. Half my encodes that can go to an iPhone, they can also go to an iPad. I shouldn't do them twice. A lot of those can also go to other connected TV devices. I can also play HLS, on Androids now. So I might as well reuse those just to kind of limit the amount of, kind of bandwidth and processing that I'm doing. Lastly, the other thing is, if you're doing a primary and a backup, make sure that your settings match. It happens so much that, people have keyframes every 3 seconds on their primary, every 2 seconds on their backup, and you can only switch from one rendition to the next on the keyframe generally, and so you just start to get a lot of really weird behavior. And then just last is just test a lot. Play with it all. Again, if you're going to get into it and you think that it's your first foray into it, buy the software, use your laptop, take your camera, hook it in, and just start playing, start testing. And I think kind of just the more you do that, the more you'll figure it out. And the more you'll see that, despite the fact that there are all these high-end events where, they do cost you, $100,000 because you're going satellite, you're going fiber, you have 8 different redundant transmission methods. There is total value in just doing things like this. It's just a single camera, 2 cameras, just out of a laptop because it's easy and it's cheap and it's really cheap content. And if you can get someone to sponsor that, then your margins are only going to be a lot higher. So I think that's kind of it for me. If anyone has any questions.
This isn't a live streaming question per se, but are there tools like Wowza that you can
Yeah, yeah. I mean, totally. And even now, a lot of the CDNs are doing that on their own. Basically, they'll host just a mezzanine file, and if someone requests the flash file, they'll get that. If someone comes in and requests an HLS file, they'll just transcode it on the fly. Yeah, I would talk to your CDN first and see who they recommend, because they probably either do it themselves or have somebody that they recommend using.
But there are no standalones that we know of. Zamzar was one.
Yeah, I'm not totally aware. I deal mostly with live, but I do. There's definitely a ton out there.
Do you have any bitrate recommendations for adaptive, and how high do you go?
Yeah, we normally top out at like 3 megs. I know, I know MTV is crazy. They go up to like 5. But for most of our stuff, I find that, we normally have like a 2, a 1.5, a 1, about a 850, maybe a 400, and then about a 200. If this is a big event that I'm really worried about everybody being able to watch. The thing is, I notice on our network, everyone's network is different just based on who their audience is. For us, it's about a meg that I think our average person ends up actually seeing. The one thing to note is that, though, people with who can handle the higher bit rates tend to watch things a lot longer. So I definitely do recommend, even if only 5% of the people are going to be able to pull that 2 or 3 meg stream, offer it, because those people, their eyes are going to be on there a lot longer. And just with live video in general, eyes tend to be on it longer than VOD. I think for us, VOD content, it's under 90 seconds is the average view time. For a lot of our live things, it's 30 minutes that the average person has their eyes glued to it. So there's definitely some value in that.
Another quick thing: do you vary the resolution as well with bit rates?
Yeah, I do. If you want afterwards, I can send you kind of what our standard is. Yeah, I definitely do, though, because if you try to stream something that's 800K and you're streaming to 1280 by 720, it's kind of useless. The one thing I will say that I've noticed is that when you start hitting the mobile devices at the lower level, resolution doesn't matter nearly as much as just what the bandwidth actually is.
Are there noticeable visual quality differences at the same bit rate with the different encoding methods?
I mean, to be honest, I'll tell you, not so much. You don't really notice it. You'd like to think that you do, if you spend all this money on a hardware encoder. You don't. I mean, if you really tweak the settings a lot, then you can maybe get a look that's a little bit more ideal for you. But in general, with software, you can get the same thing that you can get with hardware. You just, you're giving up just a little bit of those fine-tuning controls. But to the average viewer, you're probably not going to notice the difference. It's going to be more, can your computer keep up with delivering that, that bandwidth and resolution and doing that encoding on the fly. I will say, running something, through Wowza, sometimes I think like the HLS streams that you get off of it are a little soft. It's not really all that noticeable. You'd have to like really put them side by side. But as far as getting into it, I don't think it makes a huge difference.
So just a quick follow-up on that then. If you are using something like Wowza and not sending out a number of streams through one hardware encoder, would there really, if you're just sending out the one primary stream, would there really be a need for the hardware solution in that instance?
Not really. I mean, if you have the hardware, maybe you want to use it. If it's I know for us, we've done 1 or 2 things where that's just the way we've done it, because we don't have enough hardware to support all the renditions that we need to give out, but we have the hardware encoders, and they're there. They're on my router. I might as well use them. But no, if you're going to go like the Wowza route and you're going to really just start trying things out, there's no reason to go buy a hardware encoder off the bat. Any other questions?
2 questions actually. One is, I noticed, in the sample video that you showed, one of them was a street interview that you showed.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, how do you get access to bandwidth in the street video?
So we love the Live View packs. We love them. There's a company called Live View. It's basically a backpack with 14 cell phones and a WiMAX modem in it. You wear it, it probably will give you cancer, but and then you have a receiver server back in your location. And so basically it just like calls, the server that we have and just starts sending data. And so then we can just take the SDI out of that and patch it through any of our normal workflows. The only problem with those is there's a little bit of a delay. It's like maybe a 10 to 20 second delay. So if you're trying to do like a talkback, it's not the best thing. But if you're just trying to, we use it for like Engadget uses it whenever there's an iPhone release or anything. They just go out there right before and right after and just talk to their viewers about what they're expecting. And it doesn't matter that it's not live. Great, it happened 30 seconds ago. But it's a great, easy way to get it back. And I know they just came out with 2 new models. One that has only 4 receivers, but it's like this big, and you can just wear it on your belt. And then another one that's supposed to be even stronger and can send like a 10 meg stream. So.
And the second one, how do you deal with drop-offs? What could be the usual causes, and how can you tackle it, like when it's live?
Like if we lose a signal.
Audio or video drop.
Well, I mean we.
Frames or drop audio.
Generally, if it's the first thing is just for us to identify, is it on the actual, if it's a transmission thing, is the transmission coming in clean? If it's not, then we've got to figure out a way to fix that. Hopefully we have a redundant transmission that's clean, and so we can just swap that. If it's something with our actual, encoding, if one of our encoders is acting up, if it's in studio, we generally have 2 hardware encoders on it, and so hopefully one is okay. In a way, you're kind of in dead water because the last thing you want to do is actually reboot an encoder while you're live because you will lose everybody. And so it's really test before, and just until you're positive that, what you've got is something that you're willing to put out there. Because I'll be honest, there's no real solution to, you can try to drop a few of the bit rates out that you're streaming so that it doesn't tax your encoder so much. But then on the player side too, you've got to make sure to remove those. Otherwise, users are going to start having problems with, trying to connect to streams that don't exist anymore.
And do you ever run into problems, audio-video synchronization? Do you ever run into that problem?
Not really, just because we generally run everything through a board and have an audio engineer that can toss any delay that's needed on. Or we're just going straight out of like a camera, into, so it's SDI the whole way. There's no de-embedding happening. So we don't worry about that so much. But I could see in a more makeshift environment that could come up a lot. Yeah.
How do you fix that? Because I was working on a live streaming event that was a delay problem in cameras.
Yeah, a lot of, I know, like, if you want to hit me after, I send you like some model numbers. But there's some boards that can literally put a delay on things, so that you can just kind of dial it in, so that for both audio and video, you can match.
Using Wirecast, can you switch between numerous camera inputs?
Yeah, if you have, so like if you have like a Mac Pro, for example, with a Kona card that can take in 4 inputs, you could have 4 cameras there, and you could switch between them. So in a way, it's like a homemade, TriCaster or whatnot.
You talked about the relatively high cost of hardware encoders, such as CNC, the index spinning, or whichever brand you want to call it.
Right.
Have you reviewed the lowest DSP-based ones, such as Minicaster, Stream Appliance, Teradek Cubes, and so on, which are on par with a laptop?
We've, we haven't used any of those to actually stream to our like CDN. We've used those to literally just do like IP transmission from one location to another. We haven't experimented yet with, actually pushing to our CDN that way.
General company, you will find that in the market, hardware-based, they're real hardware-based encoders rather than hardware-based.
Right.
Cisco sort of claim that the CNP is. It would be well worth you going out and encoding that into the market.
I'll definitely have to look into that.
Since they mentioned another vendor that makes DSP-based more cost-effective hardware encoders is Beeper.
Yeah, I've used them before.
BPRICK. You have a booth.
Just curious if you've had any experience with the Blackmagic Pro encoder.
I haven't yet.
Pro recorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use it. It's actually pretty good, but I use it as a backup for like archive, like keep a local archive, post as an on-demand later, and it does a pretty good job. Yep.
It's incredibly cheap.
How do these transmogrification services usually charge? Do they charge by upload bandwidth, or do they charge by delivery method?
As far as like which services? Yeah, Wowza. I mean, you pay. There's two ways. You can either basically set it up on your own as your own Amazon instance, and so you pay for the actual time that it's up and spinning, and then for any bandwidth in or out, and then you also pay a licensing fee to Wowza on top. And their licensing fees, though, it's not that bad. And if you want to run it locally on like your own server, you can, I think, like lease it for like $40 a month or something. It's
Who's in charge of the player development when you're doing something, a hybrid situation like that?
Well, you're still delivering to whatever your own player is. They're basically just giving you the ARLs of where the streams are.
So you yourself would develop the player along with you or your CDN?
Yeah, or for us, our player and our CDN are separate, but our player is pulling the streams from our CDN. But we could pull streams from Wowza or another CDN all the well. It's just needing to know that location to plug into the player.
Where do you do your video switching with the hardware encoding?
Well, generally we're then in our studio, and so like a Grass Valley switcher most of the time, or it can be a TriCaster too. Actually, for a lot of field shoots that we do, I will use a TriCaster, but then we'll use something else as kind of to actually stream it, just because the logic is we've got this TriCaster, it's doing so much, it's switching between 8 cameras, it's doing lower thirds, it's doing graphics. Do we really trust it to to stream as well? It totally can, and it'll work 90% of the time. But just for me mentally, I don't feel comfortable with that. I'd rather have something else that's dedicated just to handle the streaming.
And follow-up question, have you used IP cameras with some of the hardware appliance or encoders?
Yeah, we have actually. We quite often we have like a DC bureau for politics, and so they'll often send us stuff back via an IP camera, just so that we. It's just a really easy way to, it's relatively cheap, and then we can kind of handle it in whatever our own productions are that we're doing in New York. Yeah, there are some. What we actually prefer to use is these things that are actually it's the Fujitsu 920 D&Es, and they're it's literally just an IP encoder, so you can plug whatever camera you want in, SDI, HDMI, and just give it the address of the other one, and you can shoot like up to like a 30 meg stream if you have the bandwidth across. So it's not really an IP camera, but it's IP transmission. And so we'll do that more often than not. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you all. And if anyone